Welcome to Jacob's Quest, and the other day I got to see Novocaine a couple days early. And let me just start with my non-spoiler review. First, I will say, if you've seen the trailers, you're going to get almost what you expect. I think I do have a little bit of a gripe with the way that this movie was marketed. Not just that it was kind of everywhere, like they really are pushing this one. But I will say overall, I really enjoyed this movie. You know, it is an action comedy. The guy is trying to save the girl that he fell in love with. So, you know, kind of everyday schlub who just happens to have one thing that will help him, you know, do a bunch of cool action stuff. Kind of manages to somehow find a way to stop the bad guys and save the day. And that's, you know, obviously it's a story that we've seen a lot, especially in the action comedy kind of way. We've seen a lot of those lately. But this one does have several surprises. But let me go ahead and get into my whole marketing gripe about this movie. When you watch the trailers for this, you know, or at least several of them, they very much try to almost hype this up as a superhero genre type thing. You know, they even say something like, oh, you're like a superhero, dude. And then someone else, I think, says like, oh, you can't just do all this stuff. You're not Wolverine, you know. So they're very much like trying to make you think about superheroes when you watch this movie, or at least in the marketing of it. And that's not really what the movie is, you know. The implication, you know, for example, in the trailers, the guy walks up and says like, oh, you're Novocaine, I know you. In the context of the movie, that is not at all what it appears to be in the trailer. You know, the trailer kind of presents this as if, oh, he's this known figure who goes by the name Novocaine, and he's kind of a superhero guy. And that's definitely seems to be like the implication that they were trying to push forward. That's not what it is. That's not at all what's going on. And I very much prefer what the movie actually does, and so I kind of hate that they marketed it in a way that kind of makes you think like, oh wait, is this like some brand new IP superhero that they're making up, and you know, his name is Novocaine or something? Like, no, that's not what it is. That's not what's going on here. But this is a really fun action comedy movie. Definitely go check it out. And there's a couple surprises that I don't want to spoil, but I'm going to talk about in a second. So anyways, that's my recommendation. Check it out. It's fun. I really enjoyed this one. It's going to remind you of several different movies. It reminds me a lot of, I think the movie was called Nobody. It had, oh man, Better Call Saul. What's his name? The actor. Saul Goodman. The actor. Anyways, it had him in it. It was called Nobody. This one very much fits that kind of vibe that one had. Maybe slightly more comedic, but it's still in that realm, it feels like. Very gory, very bloody, but the action scenes were cool. It was fun. I enjoyed everything about this one. So let's go ahead and go into some spoilers here, because I feel like I gotta talk about it, but I don't want to ruin it for you guys. So anyways, I recommend you check it out. We're going into spoilers. Here we go. Woo, spoilers. Okay. So the first big spoiler for this one, okay? They don't keep it some big reveal for the whole movie, and I'm thankful for that. But basically he meets this girl and they get along really quickly. They have like really just one night, you know, or like he's had a crush on her for a while, but they go out for one night and they just click on everything, right? Like she's totally into him, and he's really like this loner, you know. He plays video games on the PC all the time, and he doesn't have many friends at all. And it's because he has this condition where, you know, he has to be really careful because he might accidentally hurt himself without even realizing it, because he can't feel anything. So he can't even eat solid foods because he's scared that he might bite off his tongue. And, you know, you kind of get the sense that like, oh, his parents kind of were very protective of him and coddled him his entire life because, you know, obviously he's got this condition, so I guess they would have to, right? But that's kind of resulted in him being basically a shut-in who doesn't, you know, he doesn't date, he doesn't have friends, he doesn't go out anywhere. He's just really careful, but he takes his job very seriously. He's just like this insurance salesman guy. So anyways, he meets this girl who works there, and they really hit it off, and everything goes super well. And it's almost, you know, it almost hit that level of they did like the manic pixie dream girl kind of thing for a little bit, you know, where it's like, okay, things are way too good to be true. This isn't realistic at all, right? Like, you know, like they get together immediately and over one night, and you're like, okay, what's going on here, you know? Because it's very much a thing that only happens mostly in movies to like this extreme extent, right? And it turns out, of course, big twist, that she is in on the big bad guy heist that's happening. Their insurance place gets robbed, or their bank or whatever. It gets robbed, and you know, they take her as a hostage, and it's revealed probably 30 minutes into the movie that she's in on it. So we know for the majority of it that she knows who the bad guys are, and she's actually the sister or the foster sister of the main bad guy that we're gonna have to stop. Now, from then on, you kind of like, you hate her for a little while because you're like, oh man, she you know, she totally set up the main character who is this really innocent guy, and so you kind of hate her for a minute, but then she slowly redeems herself throughout the movie. So by the end of it, she's risking everything to save him and help him out, and now she's totally on his side. And so, you know, it works by the end of it, but it's definitely a twist that, like, you know, you kind of, this guy's been through so much stuff, and so to add that extra twist that everything he's doing, he thinks he's breaking all these laws and getting in all this trouble and getting these fights and almost dying all these times to save this girl. So it's just added like this extra salt in the wound that, like, oh, the girl's in on it the whole time. She's one of the bad guys, you know? So you're like, damn, that really sucks. So, you know, luckily they do manage to like keep it light in a comedic way. There's obviously lots of blood and stuff happening, but they do manage to keep it comedically light, and so it's believable enough that when she slowly gets more on his side, because she actually did like him, that like she's willing to completely turn on everyone that she knows in order to help this guy out. So yeah, by the end of it, she's a good guy, and you know, it all works out by the end. But that is something that I felt when it happened. I was like, oh, okay, that, you know, that at least adds like an extra little bubble to it, or twist. I don't know why I said bubble. Anyways, but something else that I was concerned about going into this movie was that because of all the, you know, superhero analogies or comparisons or whatever you want to say that they were doing in the marketing, right, where they're like, oh, you're not Wolverine, dude, and then they showed him taking something in the trailers and his eyes get dilated, and you're like, oh, so is he gonna find some way to be stronger, or to, you know, like, he already can't feel pain, but that's not really a superpower, right? Like, if anything, that's more of a danger to yourself. And I feel like the movie does an okay job at still maintaining that throughout the movie. You know, he probably should have been more woozy from blood loss than he was, because he definitely gets beat up a lot. Like, he gets burned and cut and stabbed, and he gets, you know, parts cut off, and all kinds of stuff is happening, right? And they kind of explain it by him taking a couple of adrenaline shots throughout the movie, but it definitely starts to feel like, okay, he, you know, we're pushing the boundaries here, but it's a comedy, so okay. But I do appreciate that by the end of the movie, he's in a full body cast. Like, he had to, you know, he was in a coma. He had to, like, he got put away for a while because of how injured he actually was, even though he didn't realize it. And so, you know, it did, I don't know, it felt better that way, that they weren't straight up making him like a superhuman, right? Because I know that this condition does actually exist, or at least a similar idea does exist in real life. There are people who actually can't feel things, and so they have to be really careful. So I was curious, like, you know, are we gonna try to turn this into some kind of weird, like, oh, so he's a superhero, like he's unstoppable kind of guy, when it's like, no, he's very much getting injured. He just doesn't feel the pain of it, but like his hand and the stab wounds and the blood loss, like, that's all going to affect him, you know. So he definitely gets beat up quite a bit. He's not actually unstoppable. And I feel like they managed to ride the line very decently there. We're like, all right, we're going to play it for laughs half the time, but then the other half the time, like, oh no, he's actually in danger though. Like, he might not be able to win this fight. I will say maybe the only thing is that, like, in no way is he a trained fighter, but he is able to pull off a lot of cool fighting choreography. And so, you know, I kind of was waiting for the movie to maybe explain that bit, because, like, he seems to be able to fight somewhat, but like that just doesn't ever happen. He's just, I don't know, he's just really motivated to save the girl, so he just does it somehow. But overall, you know, you kind of let stuff like that go. It's an action comedy, right? It's not taking itself too seriously. I enjoyed this one. I thought it was a lot of fun to sit through. The action is really good. The gore and a lot of the crazy ways that they managed to, you know, fight off these guys. It gets pretty fun at parts. Yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot. I thought it was a fun time. And I feel like it has just enough twist to it that it doesn't feel so much like a lot of movies you've already seen before. You know, they were able to like add a little bit extra pieces to it. And yeah, I had a good time with this one. Let me know what you guys think about Novocaine, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.